Hello and welcome to episode 342 of Retro Encounter, RPG fans' weekly podcast of many topics. I'm Mike Sollosi, and let's see, what metaphor do I want to use here? It's early September. A lot of people are starting school and breaking in, let's say, some new school clothes for the first time of the year. But instead of breaking in school clothes, we are breaking in some new Retro Encounter panelists. So let's introduce them. First of all, making his over 100th appearance on the show, Peter Triezenberg.
Yeah, I would say I'm the opposite of a new person, but hi, Peter Triezenberg.
All right, well, you can be like our old favorite backpack that we've had for years and years, but let's talk about our new jeans, shirt, and sneakers. Three panelists are joining Peter and I today, making their first appearance on Retro Encounter. I am so happy and proud and excited to introduce to you, first, Joshua Lindquist.
Hi, everyone.
And Tom Cox.
Hello.
And Anthony Krolikowski.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It is my honor and pleasure to have all three of you joining the show, Tom, Joshua, Peter, and Anthony. And we're here. I mean, we're in a good mood. We're excited to talk about today's topic, the Nintendo 3DS, a machine that has given us many, many hours of joy over the years. We recently had a feature repost. I think it was originally from 2017, but we reposted our best RPGs of the 3DS feature somewhat recently, and so you can find that on the RPG Fan main site, and we even use that feature as a little bit of a basis to look up all the RPGs for the system. But there is a little bit of a sad twinge to this, because the 3DS eShop is shutting down officially in March of 2023, and users will stop being able to add money to their Nintendo 3DS account using credit cards or similar devices late in August. So we're recording this in August, but that time will have already passed at the time of this episode. So we're celebrating the 3DS, but also somewhat mourning the 3DS's time, because it is sadly past. Nintendo is doing just fine with their that Switch machine I've heard so much talk about. But here, the Switch is the future, and the 3DS is the present. So, starting with you, Peter, yeah, you and I have had many conversations like this before. Tell us a little bit about like why you love the 3DS, or something about the 3DS you love.
Oh yeah, the 3DS is just a really special handheld. I've owned three of them over the course of since it came out, because they've had so many different little iterations of them. But it was a terrific handheld for RPGs and kind of handheld, more traditional Nintendo experiences. It had enough processing power that it could kind of recreate games that we would have seen on consoles in the early 2000s. So it really felt like it was really ahead of its time. And some of the games early on made really good use of that 3D gimmick. So yeah, I have a lot of fondness for the system. So many hours playing Zelda and Pokemon and all that good stuff.
Zelda and Pokemon might show up later this episode, but same question to you, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, I think the 3DS is a really special console. I mean, it was the first. I got mine like late 2016, which is quite late on in the life cycle, but it was the first console I ever bought with my own money. Like, I was only 13 at that point, so that makes me sound quite young, but yeah, it was just
a cruel reminder of exactly how much older I am than you, Tom.
Oh my god, Tom is baby.
But yeah,
Please
I mean,
continue.
Also I think compared to the Switch, just like the customization that you could have of it, you had your themes. There was a lot more special editions. The new 3DS, like the smaller one, had all the swappable faceplates. I just felt it was definitely a console that felt like it had a personality,
Yeah, totally agree. And while you mentioned special editions and faceplates, I've only owned one 3DS, but it is the Year of Luigi Special 3DS that came with a baked-in copy of Mario and Luigi Dream Team. So I have it's a nice little silver and black 3DS with some etched Mario and Luigi images at the back. And I treasure that thing. I guess it'll be my turn now. I got a 3DS in 2014, I believe. I was extremely keen to play a couple of the big 3DS titles that had already come out, and the library is so strong that I have been rarely disappointed. My collection is probably something like 75% RPGs. I glanced at my game cases before recording, but there's both remakes and ports and original games. It is just a strong library through and through, and it's, I mean, the sales show for it. This system sold like gangbusters for Nintendo for many years. But Josh, let's have you go next, and I would not be shocked if you mentioned a certain series that you're well known for.
Yeah, we're not gonna have to wait long for that. The 3DS is a Zelda machine. That is the reason I bought one. Ocarina of Time remake was quickly announced, and but even beyond that, it was the first handheld Nintendo had that had a digital store that had full-fledged titles in it, including a virtual console. So my 3DS is just full of retro games, notably every Zelda game they wanted to sell me. So I mean, it's still on the charger right now. I still use it on a semi-regular basis to play Zelda and RPGs and just everything that I could download. And a lot of that stuff is not been released again.
I mean, all true. My favorite 3DS game is a specific Zelda game that I'm sure we'll talk about shortly. But before we get into that part of the podcast, Anthony, tell us a little bit about you and the 3DS.
So I'm gonna start off with, sorry, I'm gonna make you feel a little older. I was 8 when the 3DS came out, turning 9.
Oh boy!
Sweet
Oh boy!
mother of God.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
So-
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, I was just going into like 5th grade. So I always grew up with handhelds. Like my first console was a DS. I used to play Pokemon nonstop when I was younger than that, and it always kind of just stuck with me. Even like now, like with the Switch, I've grown fondness of just handhelds in general, and then looking forward to that Steam Deck whenever those pre-orders come through.
Yeah.
But I started off with the base blue model, and then I kind of went overboard. I went into an XL that was blue, and then I sold that when the Animal Crossing model came out for the XL, and then now I use the new 3DS XL with the Sun and Moon legendaries on it, and
Got
that's
it,
kind of
yeah.
like the main.
Nice.
So yeah, I went through the war trenches of different 3DSs, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I'm slightly jealous of new 3DS players because for some reason only the new versions, like capital N new, are the ones that have a virtual console for Super Nintendo games.
Yes.
So I was denied a chance to buy a 6th or 7th copy of Mega Man X, but I found it in my heart to forgive them, I guess.
They're also the only ones with that nifty little thumbstick, which a
Right.
few games took advantage of.
I've never used that.
If you play Monster Hunter on the 3DS, you definitely want that. But that's maybe that's another subject that'll come up because listeners, maybe you remember our episodes on the GBA or DS or other console specific ones. We're gonna have this in a roundtable format. We have a giant list of 3DS games in front of all of us, and we're gonna take turns discussing one specific game or series in turn until we get tired or hungry and decide to end the episode. So we'll see how that goes. Does anyone want to take their first shot?
I can start off if you'd like.
Go for it.
Yeah, so I was going to say, let's start off with talking about the Pokemon games that came out on 3DS, because, oh man, the 3DS had a killer lineup of Pokemon titles. This was the beginning of both Generation 6 and Generation 7. And I sort of credit Pokemon X and Y with getting me back into Pokemon. Just because I'd skipped the DS generations at the time. They were the first fully 3D Pokemon games, starting a design trend that continues to this day. We got our Ruby and Sapphire remakes. We got Sun and Moon and its like enhanced editions, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. We even got the Virtual Console games, Virtual Console versions of the original Game Boy games, and those had restored the version of Crystal that came with that had restored content in it. They put in the Celebi event.
And extremely conveniently, like my old copy of Pokemon Gold, a lot of them had battery packs. Well, all of them had battery packs to have the internal clock of the of your save file run, so it could have a day-night cycle. Though all of the Virtual Console games on the 3DS that basically just use the 3DS's internal clock for those day-night cycles, because a lot of people that kept around those Game Boy games, at when that battery pack died, the game was frozen at whatever time it was on the battery pack when it died. So my copy of Pokemon Gold for the Game Boy Color is permanently frozen at 1:07 a.m. Which is a shame if you're trying to evolve an Espeon or something. And the GBA games did not have a day-night cycle for maybe a similar reason. But yeah, the 3DS was very kind to Pokemon. And a lot of people love Gen 6 and 7. I think I like Gen 7 a little more than 6, but both of them had a lot of great monsters and a lot of just cool ideas. They're good. I played both of them.
Yeah, I think it's some of the strongest designs we've ever gotten in Pokemon were in those two generations. Like, I'm just a big fan of, especially the Pokemon they introduced in Alola. Like, there's just so much creativity in that setting.
Alola also introduced all the regional variants, and I think that was a pretty cool introduction to the series, and continued that on. But
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
I love
Alolan Vulpix, like that's one of my favorites.
I love Alolan Vulpix and Alolan Sandshrew slash Sandslash. He looks like Sonic the Hedgehog.
Marowak is good as well.
Hmm. Yeah, just taking old Pokemon and sort of giving them an update with the region variants and also with Mega Evolutions.
Yeah, and Mega Evolutions in Gen 6 and Z moves in Gen 7 are both great, and I'm a little bit miffed that the Gen 8 didn't keep either of them.
And I'm
But
a little bit miffed that Gen 9 will not have them either. But
one thing that Gen 8 did do that was pretty good was they added Galarian versions of a lot of old Pokemon, continuing the tradition of Alola, which that was something I welcomed. But
yeah, they're
yeah,
continuing to do that too. We've had Hisuian forms. We're getting
hell
Paldean
yeah.
forms. It's like that's a neat tradition that started on the 3DS.
I also think Gen 7 was quite interesting as they dropped gyms in favor of trials and like completely switched it up. And I think that was quite like a nice like breath of fresh air after like 6 generations of gyms.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, oh, this Pokemon game actually has like boss fights. That's interesting.
And
And
basically introducing Alola as a region that didn't have the modern gym system, but instead had this, had a different culture surrounding a coming of age ceremony and Pokemon trainers. It gave Alola as a place a little bit more character. I felt I welcomed that as well.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, in general, like I think the Pokemon generations on the 3DS were fantastic. Ruby and Sapphire are some of my favorite games. So playing the 3D updates to those was really fun. I really enjoy Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Uh, my only disappointment is that we never got a proper Pokemon Z or a third version of Gen 6 because I would have liked to explore Kalos a little bit more. But oh well.
So the thing with me when I play Pokemon games, especially when I was younger, I would just play through with the main story and then that was it. But more recently when like Brilliant Diamond came out, I like to focus more on like the battle frontier and like the kind of like slight competitive format. So like going back and like I was just playing Ultra Sun a few months ago, and then Pokemon Crystal, and I found it like hard to I played Ultra Sun for the first time, but like in the older games like X and Y and like regular Sun and Moon, hard to replay them because I look forward to like the end game content. So like to go back and revisit the titles, even though they were good to go through and enjoy, the regions and the new Pokemon stuff, it kind of that replayability fades away from someone who enjoys the battles. And for me, the battles only felt enjoyable in the post game setting. So like looking back, it was fun to play them that one time. But I feel like with Pokemon games, unless like it was your favorite one way back when, it's kind of hard to go back and keep revisiting them.
I definitely get what you mean. I mean, with I think there's a bit of a debate between which is better, Sun or Moon, or Ultra Sun or Ultra Moon, and I think like the general consensus is the story in Sun and Moon is much better, but the Ultra variants just excel everywhere else. They've got like the Rainbow Rocket post game, all of that.
Yeah, that's a fair way of putting it because I think with speaking for friends that are into competitive Pokemon, they're very fond of Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon for all of the changes they made, the additional post game, those extra options. But for me personally, I enjoyed playing through Vanilla Sun and Moon more because it doesn't help that I played Ultra Sun Ultra Moon less than a year later, but but also like it just I thought that version of the story was just a little more better told.
That's
Yeah.
very fair.
It's still interesting that it's not a sequel like Black 2 and White 2 were, and nor is it quite like a definitive third version like Emerald version. It's kind of Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon are very much their own beast.
I think they're meant to be some sort of like almost like a parallel universe, like an alternation, like the story sort of like diverges at a certain point.
Yeah, right, because it is pretty similar to the original experience up until a certain point in the story.
I was gonna say, like, my experience is kind of like Peter's, that I kind of fell off it in the DS era, and part of that was just that I grew up with the original 2 and 3 generations, and when I played them on the DS, it seemed like it was the same, a little bit better, and X drew me in because it felt like a big leap forward. Uh, but really, the most fun I had on my 3DS was just getting to play Blue again. Uh, like it was the first time I had finished it in, gosh, I guess it was like 15 years, at least
Oh,
10 years. Uh, so like that was when they gave me that opportunity. I leapt at it and didn't stop playing it. But I'm a
I,
very casual player. I don't do post game and I don't do any kind of competitive battling of any kind. I just play till the credits roll.
I don't do a lot of Pokemon post game or battling, but I did use this opportunity on the 3DS to replay Pokemon Red, trade with a friend for some Pokemon Blue version monsters, and use the RNG fly trick to catch a Mew. So I have a 151 file on Pokemon Red in my 3DS, and
Yeah, I made an attempt at Mewtwo and failed, and then was like, I'm done.
So, all right, that's Pokemon. Who wants to talk about another 3DS game or series that we have ready to go here?
Yeah, I mean, I can go next.
Yeah, go for it.
So one I played like really quite recently, actually, after Chrono Trigger was Radiant Historia: Perfect Chronology. I
oh.
think that it's quite an interesting. It's an interesting game. Like it's got a quite cool like time travel concept, and you can definitely see the draws from Chrono Trigger.
Yeah, I mean it's Atlas and not Square, but it does have a wonderful Yoko Shimomura soundtrack. And listeners, if you're familiar with Radiant Historia, we did do 2 episodes on Radiant Historia in early 2021. I think it was February or March of 2021. But please continue, Tom.
I don't really have loads to say on it, but I think it was just like it's interesting that they bought it because I've been told that the DS version is actually like a better version, but I don't really
Yeah,
know how people feel about that.
I am kind of that opinion. But it's not that Perfect Chronology is bad by any means. If that's the version you have to play, it's still a terrific game. It's more I don't think people were very happy with the change to the art style, um, which you can buy character portraits as DLC that look like the old art style, but it's not quite the same. The old art style had a very distinctive look, where it was kind of like chiaroscuro esque. That's lost a little bit in Perfect Chronology. And of course, your mileage may vary about whether or not the new story content adds anything of value. Some people like it because it gives the story a definitive ending. Other people, like me, kind of prefer the ambiguity of the original game's ending.
Yeah, the ending on the new storyline is a little bit bleaker, but I'm sorry. On the old storyline, it's a little bit bleaker, and in the new storyline, it's like Peter said, less ambiguous, and does sort of try to wrap it up in a bow nicely. And whether you like that or don't depends on the player. But the remixed music is good. The slightly better functionality of the game is good, and it's still the same excellent game with some interesting grid-based combat and a lot of fun time travel manipulation because you're basically navigating 2 timelines based on a decision that you make early in the game, and what you affect in one timeline can affect the other. Gives you a little bit of Uchikoshi vibes of remembering things from other timelines. But maybe we'll talk about Uchikoshi a little bit later. But I mean, both versions of Radiant Historia, either DS or 3DS, are both excellent and worth playing. I wholeheartedly recommend them. It's a very good game from a very fun era of Atlas. Uh, uh, Josh or Anthony, have either of you played Radiant Historia?
Unfortunately, not. maybe one of my biggest RPG regrets of the DS and 3DS era. The game was really rare on the DS. It was very hard to find it, and so I never did. And I was excited about the remake, and it just got lost in everything else happening, and I never got around to it.
Radiant Historia was kind of hard to come by even when it was new on the original DS. I remember it being pretty short printed. But it was actually I got it from my dad, who on our way to a family Christmas event actually stopped at a GameStop like in Indiana and picked me up a copy that he found, and I'm just like, oh, that was really sweet, thank you. Um, yeah, but yeah, it's that game was pretty rare at the time, and has only gotten harder to find now. Although it's not as hard as like some other 3DS games that we'll probably talk about later. Dragon Quest.
I don't know what you're talking about, man. I have DDS copies of all the Dragon Quest and Radiant Historia, but
Bro, I am kicking myself for selling some of my physical games.
I'm a hoarder who buys all the RPGs. What can I tell you? But let's talk about some other RPGs. Anthony or Joshua, but not renowned boxer Anthony Joshua. What's something else on the list to discuss?
If I may, since we already mentioned it, Dragon Quest.
Dargon Quest.
Yes, exactly. So 7 and 8 specifically, like what I wanted to focus on is that when 7 came out, I played it, and for me, a big thing of games is character customization or just general like cosmetic customization. And I'm more, as you mentioned in a past Retro Encounter episode, gameplay over story. I'm more of like a gameplay person, but if there's a story involved, then it goes even more for me. And 7 to me kind of fell flat in like how interesting the story was, and to get to the class system, which for me was the customization aspect, I was about 20 hours in, and I remember looking on the back of the cover, and I remember saying that the class system was like a highlight, and I still wasn't at that yet, and I got to a point where I was stuck, and I just kind of gave up on the game.
Yeah. Backing up a little bit, Dragon Quest VII was a PlayStation 1 game, and it is the longest and most laborious Dragon Quest game. I think a typical playthrough is over 100 hours. But for the DS remake, they truncated things like experience values a little bit, and there's really no load times to speak of. So it's much shorter. You playing all the same content with only a little bit of story changes. It's about 60 or 70 hours, but you still don't get those classes and that gameplay customization and visual interest from classes until about the 1/3 mark. So maybe you were close to unlocking them, but
I
they do.
probably was, yes.
But yeah, Dragon Quest VII takes a while to get cooking, but it's I've maybe repeated this on podcasts before. Dragon Quest VII is good Dragon Quest, but it's also the most Dragon Quest, and there's good and bad to that.
And then just quickly going, sorry, to 8, I just started playing that again. I always did like the first dungeon and then just stopped. But I picked it up again like a week ago, and I've been more, especially compared to 7, just more invested in the story and the characters. And plus, there's the voice acting in that game, so the characters feel more colored, and the being thrown right into the conflict instead of like in 7 waiting the first hour till you actually get into combat or any of those aspects. It just made 8 more refreshing and
Sure.
kind of feel superior in the short amount of time that I've played it.
8 is it's the only Dragon Quest I've played, but it's such a good game. And I mean, considering like I never had a PS2, so it was the first time I ever got to play the game. And I mean, I think just the characters in general, like it's a really like charming game, and it has an incredible soundtrack.
Dragon Quest VIII is a masterpiece, in my opinion. Like that is one of the best games in that series. And I did play it on the PS2, or rather, I played the first couple hours and the Final Fantasy XII demo disc. My sister actually got further in the PS2 game than I did. Fun fact. But I revisited it with the 3DS version, which makes so many quality of life upgrades, and it is just absolutely, if you can find a copy, because that game got really rare really fast.
Oh, weird. I have my copy sitting right here next to me. That's weird.
It came out at the tail end of the 3DS's life cycle, and I think that they only did like one print run of it. So now it is extremely hard to come by a physical copy of Dragon Quest VIII. I ended up getting it digitally. just because I was like, oh, I don't want to pay those eBay prices.
Yeah,
I was
But
quite lucky. I got it in a. I think I got it second hand at like a used game store, like quite cheap.
yeah,
that's
I think
nice.
I got lucky and got it just before it disappeared, but it's still sealed. And I also looked at those eBay prices, and now wonder if I should ever open it.
I mean, you never know with these things, man. I'm hoping the used game market will like crash after a while because I want to afford these games, guys. Um, but yeah,
In a very odd coincidence, I did buy Dragon Quest 7 and 8 3DS remakes right when they came out to nobody's surprise, and beat both of them to nobody's surprise. Uh,
absolutely not.
yeah, it was my first time finishing Dragon Quest 7 because I got lost in the sauce of that PS1 version in the somewhere in the 30 to 40 hour neighborhood before getting lost or confused or bored or some combination of those. But I finally knocked it out for real when I played the 3DS version in, oh shoot, whenever it came out in 2016 or 17. I don't, maybe before then, I don't remember the exact year. But my most expensive game that I own is a 3DS game, but it's not any of the ones we've discussed yet. We will get to that one eventually. But I mean, again, I'm almost well known as being a Dragon Quest guy, so I was thrilled to replay 8 and finish 7 for the first time on the 3DS. By having enemies visible on the field instead of as random battles, it makes sort of just managing combat way easier. The remixed visuals and sound look great. The small amount of extra content in both of them is awesome. You get 2 new party members in 8, which is huge, and you can see how many points you need for a new skill upgrade when you put in skill points in 8 is also huge. And there's also like a 25% faster animations setting for both of
Yes, in
them.
battle.
Yeah, and so just speeding up battles after you've seen animations at normal speed once, because you'll be going in and into the and out of those battles a lot, is very very welcome. A lot of modern remakes have a feature like that, and I enjoy it 10 times out of 10. So yeah, these Dragon Quest remakes, maybe they're hard to find now, but they, from a Dragon Quest fanboy, they are strongly recommended. Okay, so that's about it for Dragon Quest on the 3DS. Josh, let's have you talk about the series that I'm probably expecting you to talk about.
Yeah, it's time to talk about Zelda. I guess we've been talking about series, so we're probably going to go ahead and talk about all of these. Um,
Do it.
the main reason that I buy most hardware is to play Zelda games, and so the Ocarina of Time remake was uh, the selling point. I didn't actually buy a 3DS until after it had been released. Just putting Ocarina of Time out again, uh, a little prettier, a little fixed up, some extra buttons. Uh, I think it is the definitive version of Ocarina of Time, uh, and now it's really I'll still play both versions, but it's the version I go back to. Um, and and I was also happy to see, just jump in a little bit, the return of top-down Zelda uh, in A Link Between Worlds. What, 2 years later? Maybe not even 2 years later. Was just a huge surprise uh, that I think has hopefully given some hope that that form of Zelda wasn't gone forever. At that point, it had been uh, almost 10 years since we had seen a true top-down Zelda. We had the DS games that were, a little different, but
You're referring to the time between Minish Cap
and
uh,
Ocarina and
and
A Link Between Worlds. Yeah,
and Link Between Worlds. Okay, yeah, because I wasn't sure if we should count the Four Swords version of Link to the Past or not. But yeah, yeah, I know where you mean.
right. So no, the Minish Cap being the last like proper 2D top-down Zelda that wasn't. I don't know how to classify the DS games. I like them just fine, but they're a little different. They're not quite either. Um, and but no, so it just, the way it fixes up Ocarina of Time fixed up everything that people complained about in Ocarina of Time, essentially. And A Link Between Worlds was just sort of a, hey, remember A Link to the Past? Here it is, maybe a little better depending on who you talk to. And yeah, it just was the 3DS is just, it's one of the best pieces of hardware to play Zelda games. It just is. Um, Even if you don't like something about this particular remake or not, there's just not, before the Switch even. Maybe it still plays more games than the Switch does, Zelda games.
Yeah, like I'm still waiting on. I was kind of hoping that Ocarina 3D and Majora's 3D would get ported to Switch, like maybe an HD facelift. I know that's like a pipe dream because, like you said, I do also agree that these are the definitive. Ocarina is the definitive version of that game, and Majora's Mask is a little more divisive because I know it makes some changes to the boss fights. I got into such a big argument with a friend about that in college, but I
They're
still that
fine.
I know this is. I
They're
know. I know.
fine.
This is. I've only played the Majora's 3D, and I had a blast with it. I thought that was a good way to experience that game. So I would really like it if they preserved these versions beyond the 3DS's lifespan because they're just really, really quality. And yeah, and I think we've talked extensively about Link Between Worlds elsewhere as well. But that is a delightful 2D Zelda game that also makes really good use of the 3DS's features. If you're playing it on a 3D compatible system, you can actually use depth of field in some areas of the game, and it's like really, really neat effect.
Yeah, it's not ugly 3D. It looks like you're sort of staring down into a diorama, and it's somewhat gentle 3D on Link Between Worlds. I usually play 3DS games with the 3D off, but it's actually really good in Link Between Worlds, shockingly. And I mean, I'll just put my cards on the table here. Link Between Worlds is my favorite Zelda game. I love it. It takes the Link to the Past map, which is a really well designed map, makes a few interesting wrinkles to it, like switching the locations of Turtle Rock and the Ice Palace for just for two, but also introducing weird semi non-linearity by having you rent and buy all of the weapons available right from the beginning, except for one, which you have to beat some dungeons first before you can get it permanently. But just like it's a twist on one of the most beloved older Zelda games with great dungeon design, a really solid Zelda story and likable main characters, and like twinges of non-linearity that make it a much less corridor kind of experience than some of the Zelda games of the previous generation that maybe held your hand a little bit too much. And if that sounds like a slight amount of shade at Skyward Sword, that's totally fair. But again, and not only the ones that Josh and Peter mentioned, you can play the Oracle duo of Zelda games and Link's Awakening DX, and I think the Super Nintendo version of Link to the Past if you have a new 3DS on the system, and those are great versions as well. I mean, this is a fantastic Zelda machine.
The Legend of Zelda and the Adventure of Link are also on there, and that's not even to mention that the 3DS is backward compatible with the DS, so the physical
That's also true. Yeah,
games on the DS are there. The Four Swords Anniversary Edition was re-released on the 3DS.
That was super good.
And then if you have the Ambassador system, you can play the Minish Cap on it. So just like you can play the majority of the Zelda series on your 3DS.
The majority?
Yes, the majority. Exactly.
I'm still bummed they never made the Ambassador program like accessible to more people because I want to play Minish Cap.
Yeah, it is on the Wii U. That's a different podcast, though.
Yeah, I know. I don't have my Wii U anymore. But
no, I was going to say I hadn't talked about Majora's Mask very much, and earlier we mentioned the little thumbstick. Actually, one of the big improvements to Majora's Mask was it added a free roaming camera when played on the new 3DS.
That's true.
And Ocarina of Time still has never even had that. There is no version of Ocarina of Time with a free roaming camera. And so like that was a major improvement to Majora's Mask, despite some of the controversial changes elsewhere. And so that was just, if you have a new 3DS, absolutely changes the way you play the game, makes the game just feel better. And then, but yeah, you mentioned the Oracle games also. Those had never been re-released except on the 3DS. I recently replayed both of them. In fact, I've played both of them this year.
Nice.
We did a Zelda month in 2018, and I used that opportunity to replay both of them on the 3DS that year. Yeah.
It was actually the first time I had ever replayed Oracle of Ages. And I think they've aged remarkably well for being Game Boy Zelda games. My opinion of them used to be a little lower. Notably, I had not replayed Oracle of Ages in a very long time. But I thought they were great. And so the 3DS is just it's awesome for playing all of this. It's a little unfortunate that things like Four Swords were limited edition, uh, and that Majora's Mask has just enough changes to make people that grew up with the N64 version frequently dislike it. I'm glad Ocarina of Time doesn't have the same kind of controversial take on it. But and then of course, A Link to the Past being locked behind the new 3DS is a little annoying.
Oh, and listeners, if it sounds like I'm poking too much fun at Josh for loving Zelda so much, Josh, you are high level staff at ZeldaUniverse.net, correct?
Yes, I'm one of the webmasters of ZeldaUniverse.net.
That's why I was maybe making pointed comments about that, listeners, because I don't think I introduced you as a as shared staff between RPG Fan and Zelda Universe. Sorry,
No,
dude.
that's fine.
Did you mention Triforce Heroes in our
Oh,
little?
actually, we had not. Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned it.
I often forget about that game, but I don't think it was bad by any means.
No, I like that game. I like it a lot more than a lot of people do. Like I like playing it by myself. A lot of people will not play it single player at all. I think it is more fun single player, especially given Nintendo's online infrastructure.
Valid.
Like I've even had trouble with like local multiplayer not working right. Because the game has no drop in drop out mechanic. If someone's connection dies, you get kicked out. It doesn't matter if you're fighting the final boss, you get kicked out.
That's frustrating.
So playing the game solo can be difficult sometimes. If you want to imagine something, you can imagine having to control 3 different links at the same time while balancing on like a platform that shifts by weight. So there's some of that kind of puzzle mechanics that are difficult to manage, but yeah, I think it's actually a really fun Zelda game, especially if you just like Zelda for its dungeons. All of the multiplayer Zelda games are basically just dungeon after dungeon after dungeon, since they're stage based.
Yes, I was a big fan of the customization of the different links.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the outfits were a nice change because it differentiated it from, like, yes, obviously looked very much like Link Between Worlds, but like it added a spin to it. And I don't know about everybody else, but I played it mostly with strangers online. I felt like it mostly worked. And I don't remember, I mean, it was a while ago, but I don't remember having too many technical issues with online play. But it was a while ago. I feel like I did like beat the main boss lady like once, but I know there was still more to do, and I just kind of stopped at that point.
Oh yeah, there's still parts of that game I've never played. They did like a whole DLC pack with like 8 entire worlds full of stages that I don't know that I've played a single one of them still.
I didn't know that even existed.
Yeah, there's like they like doubled the amount of content in the game. So there's a lot to play there. I did want to mention on A Link Between Worlds about how like open-ended it is. It is almost one of those baby steps toward Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
Because like Sollosi mentioned the Skyward Sword backlash on hand-holding, and then they just kept taking these steps toward taking all of that away. And you could see that immediately. A Link Between Worlds is really when the developers started talking about changing the Zelda formula and revisiting the basics and all of those things.
Yeah, it's I mean, comparing it to Breath of the Wild is unfair a little bit, because Breath of the Wild is so beautifully nonlinear that I'm not sure there's been a game like it since. But A Link Between Worlds does have interesting nonlinearity with the most of the game, especially the bulk of the second half. Basically, they signpost you to all of the available dungeons, and the player has to complete them to beat the game, but can do them in almost any order that they want, with almost as much freedom of equipment selection as they want. And choosing your items and upgrading them is about as satisfying as a Zelda weapon or item upgrade system has been. Like even just changing the hammer to the nice hammer feels powerful and awesome in Link Between Worlds. But I mean, there's a lot of Zelda on 3DS. We're almost ready to move on. Tom, have you played any of these?
Yeah, so like the 3DS was sort of my introduction to Zelda as a franchise, to be honest. I mean, it was the first time I played both Ocarina and Majora's Mask, and Link Between Worlds was my first Zelda game. So yeah, I mean, in that respect, the 3DS is pretty important to my like love for Zelda. But I think Link Between Worlds is a really really good like introduction to the series because, like you say, it's pretty non-linear and you can just sort of choose where you pick and go. You know.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I hear you. It really did move that series forward, and hey, you could do worse for an introduction to the Zelda series than owning a 3DS.
Yeah, I've been alluding to you being able to play a lot of Zelda games on the 3DS. I finally just looked it up and counted it. There are 19 main series Zelda games, and
Wow,
14 of them can be played on the 3DS.
that's
Ha!
pretty amazing.
Twilight Princess fans are furious.
Twilight
Uh,
Princess, the Wind
don't hurt me.
Waker, Four Swords Adventures, and Skyward Sword, and Breath of the Wild. Those are the ones you can't play.
I would play a Breath of the Wild demake for 3DS. That sounds interesting to me.
I would play a Breath of the Wild remake on anything.
Yeah, but
Yeah, it'd be valid. I would. This is Zelda adjacent. We don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but Grezzo, the company that made Ocarina 3D and Majora's 3D, also made Ever Oasis, which was a really interesting dungeon crawler type game that was kind of like a cross between 3D Zelda and Seiken Densetsu. It really felt like it was kind of an interesting middle ground between those two series, and it was a delightful game, I thought.
Okay. I mean, I know Grezzo does a lot of Nintendo porting stuff. Didn't they also do the Link's Awakening remake for Switch?
Yeah, they did. I'm
Yes.
pretty
Yeah.
sure.
Oh, good for them.
So
Yeah.
I never got a chance to play Ever Oasis. I had friends who enjoyed it, so I'm pretty sure that was well received.
If I
nothing else.
may, on the Ever Oasis point, I don't know if any of you have played Fantasy Life before, which is a game I played a lot. And
I have played that. That's basically Harvest Moon / Animal Crossing with class changing and dungeon running to a degree.
Yes, I was a big fan of that game. I played it by myself, but I Ever Oasis came out much later than that game did, in the 3DS's lifespan, and I felt like at the time that it was very close to, at least the gameplay wise, to Fantasy Life already. That I felt it was okay to skip that game, in my opinion.
So that was Zelda and Ever Oasis and Fantasy Life all covered there. I guess it's my turn. I mean, if I don't say this, then who else is going to?
Dun, 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 dun.
No, I'm not going there, Peter.
Oh, okay.
Let's talk about math professors and anime lawyers.
Well, that was the other obvious choice.
Yeah. The Professor Layton series and the Ace Attorney series both had their Western debuts on the regular DS. The first three Ace Attorney games, or Gyakuten Saiban, Comeback Courtroom, or Turnabout Courtroom in Japan, were GBA games, but then their DS remakes were released worldwide. There were, let's see, 4 Phoenix Wright games and 4 Professor Layton games on the DS. Phoenix Wright are, they are adventure games with dialogue puzzles where you're a lawyer, like defending people from murder, while the Professor Layton games, you are a archaeology professor named Herschel Layton going on adventures throughout the world and solving puzzles, sometimes because you're thinking about puzzles and sometimes because you need to unlock some ancient door to an ancient treasure or thereabouts. But both of those series continued on the 3DS with some of their best games. Ace Attorneys 5 and 6, which are Dual Destinies and Spirit of Justice, were both download exclusives in North America. I don't believe you can get a box copy of those, but they were 2 very, very good Ace Attorney games. The first one introduces a new main character named Athena Sykes, and the 6th one sort of gives you a lot of closure with the Mia Fey story. I'm sorry, the Maya Fey storylines from the original Ace Attorney games, and gives you closure with Apollo Justice's story arc from the 4th Ace Attorney game. So if you're an Ace Attorney fan, I would probably recommend the original trilogy before the 3DS ones, but they're all really, really good. And there isn't a release for the original trilogy on multiple other systems. You might even be able to play them on 3DS. I'd have to check and see if that's an available download. But like the entire DS and 3DS library of Ace Attorney is excellent, and especially Spirit of Justice, the last one, I think is a particularly good one. But moving on to Professor Layton, the first 4 Professor Layton games were DS games, but then the 5th and 6th ones, which were Miracle Mask and Azran Legacy, are 3DS exclusives. They're both really good. Azran Legacy is sort of a lighter on the puzzles and heavy on weird globe trotting storylines that I think is maybe below average, but Miracle Mask is a really good one. I wholeheartedly recommend both of those, especially since the 4th Layton game on 3D on regular DS was a little disappointing. But again, I love the original Layton trilogy, and the 2 on 3DS were worthy successors. But the reason I bring these 2 up at the same time is because there was a crossover game, Layton versus Wright for the 3DS, and that game is totally bonkers. You take turns controlling each of them, and you're in a community that is very superstitious and threatened by witches in this game. And instead of courtroom trials for the Ace Attorney segments, you have to defend people from witch trials and uncover a crazy witch conspiracy. And it seems like for a while Layton and Wright are adversaries, but they eventually come together at the end because of course they do. But it is a bonkers storyline, and really really fun twist on both Ace Attorney and Professor Layton gameplay that is absolutely worth playing if you're a fan of both series. But like it probably shouldn't be someone's first Layton or first Ace Attorney game, just because you'll have a lot of questions if that's the case. And also the follow up to the Layton puzzle games after Azran Legacy ends the Herschel Layton story. There is a Catriel Layton succession with I believe it's Herschel Layton's adoptive daughter, who's the main character of a series called Lady Layton that's had a couple of 3DS games. I haven't played those, but I totally can vouch for the 2 Ace Attorney, 2 Professor Layton, and 1 Layton versus Ace Attorney game on the 3DS. So that was a very long monologue. I apologize, but do we have any Ace Attorney or Professor Layton fans in the house?
So I actually have only played Layton versus Wright of the
Why
3DS
though?
games.
Well,
I've played at least half of the original trilogy of Wright, so I really went into it as a Wright game, an Ace Attorney game.
Okay, but you were probably a little confused with all the
yes.
having all the Layton stuff thrown at you at once.
Yeah, so it was. I never finished it. It was a weird experience for sure, but it is definitely a very interesting twist on the Ace Attorney model of you being thrown into these witch trials and they don't care about logic at all, and you're like, well, here I can prove all of this, and they're like, yeah, but she's a witch, she could just make that appear, make that disappear whenever she wants. um and so that was just a really interesting twist on the series that honestly I wouldn't mind them returning to do something like that again. I don't know if there's a more fantasy Ace Attorney series out there.
How do I put this? There are 2 other Ace Attorney games for 3DS that I didn't mention.
Are you referring to Great Ace Attorney Chronicles?
In fact, I am. They never came out in the United States or worldwide, but were released in a Switch compilation last year, The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles.
Yeah, that's unfortunately another game still sitting sealed on my shelf.
Now, but if you've listened to a podcast with Nikki Fakuri in it, then you definitely know a little bit about Ace Attorney Chronicles, or sorry, Great Ace Attorney, because she adores those games. And they do bring a couple things from Layton versus Wright into those, because there is a sort of jury manipulation and jury and sort of jury opinion gameplay in the trials in those games that I think are a more evolved version of the direct jury contact stuff that you do in the witch trials in Layton versus Wright. So it's not a fantasy game. If anything, there's more fantasy in Old Ace Attorney than there is in Great Ace Attorney, because Old Ace Attorney has spirit mediums and people transforming in other people. They get pretty wild. And Spirit of Justice, the last Ace Attorney game, which is also in 3DS, there's a gameplay mechanic where a spirit medium will conjure the last moments of the murder victim, and you have to analyze the last moments of a murder victim like you're looking at police video to glean evidence from it. It's completely bonkers, but it's fun bonkers and not offensive bonkers. I don't think Wright versus Layton should be your first Ace Attorney or Professor Layton game, but these 5 games, 7 if you want to include Great Ace Attorney, which again is only on the Switch if you're playing a legal copy in English. all of them come recommended. And if you're like me and at different times in your life was obsessed with those games and you want to play all of them, they're some of the good ones. Before diving into the 3DS ones, I would recommend you play the original Ace Attorney trilogy first, because those are timeless classics.
Yeah, I really like the first Ace Attorney game.
The second one has some missteps in it, especially the circus case with the really obnoxious clown in it. But the third Ace Attorney is one of the best ones again. So, but yeah, the less we talk about Turnabout Big Top, the better. But Peter, Anthony, or Tom, do we have it? Any of you guys indulged in Professor Attorney Layton Wright?
I'll be completely honest, I have never played any of them.
Yeah, sadly, I haven't either.
I mean, there's a lot of them. I've already mentioned over a dozen games in that 1.5 spiels I dropped, so it's a big ask.
I definitely mean to try them at some point, and I do remember Steph, Derek, and I went to this really cute Professor Layton pop-up cafe they had at E3 2017, and then we got a surprise appearance from who's that guy? Who's the guy who's in charge of Level 5? Akihiro Hino, I believe is his name.
Okay, cool.
Anyway, that was a really fun state trip, and we got some cute little stickers themed after the first Lady Layton game.
Yeah, we already have a lot of Level 5 DNA in this podcast, because they co-developed Dragon Quest VIII along the regular Armor Studio, Bird Studio people, and they've developed every Professor Layton game, plus some other 3DS games that we might yet talk about,
and that we already have talked about, like Fantasy Life.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, the Level 5 was very prolific during this era, and I miss them so much.
I bought Miracle Mask when it came out around that time digitally, because Nintendo on the eShop, they had a promotion where if you got like a specific game out of a certain set, you could get Donkey Kong like Classic Edition, like from the arcade, which really wasn't anything special, but young me was like, I had to have this. So I bought it, and surprisingly, I liked it a lot. And that was the time when I was running into puzzle games that much. But it was enjoyable, the puzzle aspect, and I can't really tell you much about the story because it was a while ago.
Miracle Mask goes into Herschel's past a little bit. You meet his parents and his childhood best friend, and it continues the second trilogy storyline with his new assistant and a few other things. But I think of the fourth, fifth, sixth Layton games, Miracle Mask is maybe the best one. It's but I mean, really, all of these puzzle Layton games are just a vehicle to play between 80 and 100 numbers and sliding and visual spot the difference puzzles.
Yes. I remember the ending that stuck out to me because I was confused, and that was about it with that. And I haven't picked up the series again, not because I didn't like it, just because it's like a middle of the road kind of game in my interest.
I think the more you play Layton, the more invested you get in him as a character and like them more. There's also an animated Layton movie, which is weirdly a story point in Azran Legacy. Like the end at the ending of the fourth and fifth Layton games, there's like a mysterious door moves, and also that happens at the end of the Layton movie, and if you haven't seen the Layton movie, then Azran Legacy is harder to understand, which again is a little bit weird and gatekeepery of them. But if you invest yourself in these games and love logic and number and word puzzles, then again, Layton is very highly recommended.
Now, I did watch the Ace Attorney anime back when that was on Crunchyroll. I haven't been on there in a while, and I did enjoy that a lot. But I've never played any of those games.
If you like the films of Takashi Miike, not his horror films, but his weird video game adaptations, he did a live action Ace Attorney movie. That's a fairly faithful recreation of the first, second, and fourth cases from the first Ace Attorney.
Takashi Miike is an absolute madman.
He
I
is a
love him.
complete madman. Oh my god! It's like he does one horror movie, and it's like the scariest Japanese horror movie ever made. He does one crime movie, and it's like 25 years ago, and people still talk about Ichi the Killer nowadays. It's the guy's is insane.
That dude has pumped out 100 movies in about a 30-year career. For a while there, he was putting out 5 a year, and recently he has dialed it back to a much more reasonable 3. Like, Takashi Miike is a workhorse, and he's insane, and the Ace Attorney movie is incredible.
And I should also mention, because I don't think I'm allowed to be on a podcast without mentioning Yakuza. He directed the Yakuza Japanese live action movie.
He did, and the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure live action movie,
Holy
and
moly!
yeah, that's and Blade of the Immortal, which is awesome.
Do we
Like,
have to do a new show called the Takashi Miicast, Peter? Because
bro,
I'd be down.
I've been wanting to do a movie podcast with you for like forever. We'll get on this. We'll get on this some point.
We'll see. But yeah, I mean I'll have to Google Takashi Miicast before we release this episode and at least secure a Twitter handle for it. But okay, if we're talking about potential Twitter handles of podcasts that don't exist yet, I think we probably need to move on a little bit.
Yes.
Let's do one more round of 3DS favorites. Same order as before, which means it's your turn, Peter.
All right. So I kind of wanted to get ahead of some games that I'm not extremely fond of, but I know a lot of people are, and they are very important games in the 3DS's lifespan. The Fire Emblem series was sort of brought back to life on the 3DS. Fire Emblem Awakening was the first game on the 3DS to be released that in the Fire Emblem series, and it was, if I understand correctly, sort of intended as a swan song for the series in case they didn't get to make another one.
I believe Nintendo did say it, like, this is it. If it doesn't sell, like, it's done.
That's right. Roughly speaking, Fire Emblem Awakening is the 13th one, and the 11th and 12th games were DS, but this number 12 never released worldwide, and they had disappointing sales, especially for being on the 3DS, on the regular DS, which was a moneymaker. And Fire Emblem 11 was no, I'm sorry, Fire Emblem 10 was the Wii one. Radiant Dawn.
Radiant Dawn.
Yeah,
yes.
and Radiant Dawn did not sell gangbusters either. So there were a series of Fire Emblem disappointments before Awakening, but then Awakening was maybe the most popular one they've ever made, but prior to Three Houses.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it really took off, and a big part of that is I know that I sort of preface this by saying I don't like these games. That's not 100% true. I like Fire Emblem, and I liked Fire Emblem Awakening a lot. I think it's got a delightful cast. I think the gameplay is really fun. I think it looks great for the system, even though all the character models don't have feet. I think the dating simulator should, I know, like, no feet, 0 out of 10. I'm just kidding, but I think the dating sim aspects are actually very well handled. And if you're gonna work in a weird time travel plot as an excuse to have your child characters join the party, that actually kind of works for me. Um, it's really the game. It's the follow up to Awakening that I dislike, which I've talked about before on this podcast.
Oh
I think
boy,
Fire Emblem Fates is everything I don't like about Fire Emblem in one game, and in 3 games if you want to get technical about it. And yeah, that put me off of the series to the point that I still haven't played Echoes, and I was very hesitant to pick up Three Houses. I did end up liking Three Houses though. I'm not, maybe not the most qualified person to talk about Fire Emblem on this podcast, but I do have very strong opinions about Fates. Is there anyone else on this who show who has like more experience with these games that wants to talk about?
I can't say I have more experience with Fates. I actually have a very similar experience to you again. That like Awakening, we haven't actually mentioned Awakening. Maybe became the success it became because they finally put in easy mode to remove permadeath.
Yes, the
Like
casual options.
and like I always liked Fire Emblem. I was really excited on the Game Boy Advance when it came to North America finally. But I am not a pro gamer, so to say. The permadeath mechanic to me is just kind of an annoyance because it doesn't add something to the gameplay. It's not like the story branches if someone dies or that it's just a you need to hit reset. Like it is essentially a
Yeah.
game over if someone dies. Um, and so that never added anything. It just made me feel like I wasted an hour because the final boss of the stage got a 1% crit chance and killed my character. Uh, and
Mhm.
so, but I did really enjoy
that's why you got to
Awakening.
reload your save.
Right.
Either reload your save or suck it up, but not everyone wants to do that.
but I was also very put off by Fates, to the point that I have still not played any other Fire Emblem game, and because it is essentially three houses sold as three separate games.
I'll out myself as someone who's played way too much Fire Emblem. I've finished something like 6 or 7 of them. I played a couple of the Japan only ones, namely Generations of the Holy War and Sealed Sword, and all the GBA ones, and Path of Radiance for the GameCube might be my overall favorite. But I was disappointed by Shadow Dragon for the DS. Never really tried Radiant Dawn for the Wii, and Awakening is what got me back into it. I adored Fire Emblem Awakening when it came out. I unlocked all the child characters and put an incredible amount of time into that game. And when we're talking, listeners, if you're unfamiliar with Fire Emblem Awakening, you play through the first 10 chapters of the story like a normal Fire Emblem game. You're a prince trying to save your kingdom. There's a megalomaniacal threat, but then a mysterious person sort of arrives and outs herself as Lucina, the main character Crom's daughter from the future, because because there's an apocalypse occurs at some future point, and the future of Fire Emblem Awakening is dark and broken. So Lucina went back in time to the past to try and prevent that future. And as you continue playing the game, if two of your main characters fall in love and marry, then a new quest unlocks where their child from the future jumps back in time, and you can recruit them. And depending on how you play, you get to be Emma Woodhouse and play matchmaker with all of your characters. I don't know if anyone was expecting a Jane Austen reference in this podcast, but here we are. And
I'll take it.
yeah, and you play matchmaker, and based on what characters marry which other characters, their child will have different hair color and different stats and different available classes, and it can get real weird. Assembling a team of parents and future children, but that mostly worked. It was a little bit like Terminator, but it was unique and fun, and a little bit like Generations of the Holy War for the Super Famicom, where the first half is parent characters and the second half of the game are the children of people from the first half, and depending on who marries who in the first half, the children will be different. So it's kind of like a reference to that 1996 classic Fire Emblem. But Fates, the follow-up, which had incredible hype because Awakening was so huge, does the curious Pokemon Red Blue thing of having two different versions where you follow one army or the other, and they're called the Conquest Path or the Birthright Path, and you're an adopted child of these two families or two kingdoms, and no matter which one you pick, your siblings are weirdly way attracted to you in a way that I did not love. But the storyline is so disjointed and weird, and they really lean into the anyone can marry anyone dialogue choices and fates, which makes it like the thirstiest cast of maybe any RPG that I've ever played, which is saying something. And it just rubs me the wrong way totally. And there's also a third path called I think it's Revelations or Revelation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and which sort of is walking the middle and preventing war rather than choosing one side. And I mentioned earlier that my most expensive game that I own is a 3DS game. I bought the special edition of Fates when it came out, because I loved Awakening so much, and it's the one that has the Revelations DLC baked in, and also Birthright and Conquest on the
Oh,
same
nice.
disc, and that thing
Yep.
goes for like $500 nowadays.
And see
It's
that's actually my main complaint. I actually didn't know those story details that are problematic.
yeah,
But
they're worse than I'm making them sound.
Yeah, just the business aspect of it, of like you own a copy of that game that has all three versions on it, but you had to buy them all individually if you weren't one of the lucky few. Um, and they sold it for so much more to put them all on the same disc, despite the fact that it all was essentially one game. That was what always bothered me about it.
It was something like, I don't remember exactly, but I think I paid 80 or $90 for it, and
Right.
this was in 2015, 2016 range.
I mean, it also kind of sucks from a preservation standpoint. I mean, like with the eShop closing, like you had to be one of the lucky few to get that cartridge. You know.
I don't think. I mean, Revelations was DLC, but I don't think
Mhm.
you can get Revelations anymore now.
No,
Really?
the true ending of that game will be lost until they someday re-release it.
Yeah, and I mean it's and I mean the cynical mean part of me wants to be like, well, no great loss, but it is a loss. Like even the loss of bad art is still a blow to preservation, um, and I think it's a damn shame.
But to turn this into a compliment sandwich a little bit, I mean, Awakening good, Fate's bad, Echoes, Shadows of Valentia, pretty good. It's a remake of the second Fire Emblem game, Fire Emblem Gaiden for the NES, and it's a little bit more old school. It's more linear than Awakening is, but it's a faithful, interesting recreation of an old school Fire Emblem game, and feels more like the GBA games than Awakening or Fates does, and I think mostly for the better. Echoes is a different one. I don't think I was obsessed with it the way I loved Awakening, but it's a good one. While I cannot recommend Fates, but Awakening and Echoes I think are two good Fire Emblem games.
Yeah, I definitely mean to hunt down a copy of Echoes at some point because again, I skipped it the first time around because Fates turned me off so much. But after playing Three Houses and enjoying it quite a bit, it's not my favorite game ever like it is for some people, but I definitely enjoyed it. And I'm kind of curious to see what they'll do next.
I own a copy of Three Houses, even though I love Fire Emblem. I have not played it yet, but you can 100% blame this podcast for it because it's hard for me to sit down and play a giant long strategy RPG unless I'm podcasting about it.
That's why you picked the war. That's why you picked the war criminal lesbian path because it's the shortest path to victory.
But everybody plays every path in that game.
Yeah,
There are people that are still playing that game, have been playing it since the day it came out.
I have actually been meaning to replay Three Houses and go back and do the other routes, but I've still only done my Edelgard route, and I'm happy with that. But putting that aside, just going back to fire, the 3DS Fire Emblems real quick, as well, sort of. As much as I dislike Fire Emblem Fates, I will say that female Corrin is an S tier character design, and I do main them in Smash. So make of that what you will.
Fun in Smash.
Yes.
I was going to say on Echoes, I've never played the original Fire Emblem 2, and I actually haven't played Echoes. I just watched a friend play it. I actually really like the main cast of that game, and I really like the dungeon crawling aspect of it.
That's right.
Which I don't know if any other Fire Emblem has.
I don't think it does. The original Fire Emblem Gaiden didn't have that either. But like Echoes experimented with Fire Emblem gameplay that wasn't clear the map or capture the castle with these dungeons.
It sticks out to me as something I remember, and even occasionally knocks me and says, maybe you should have played this one. Maybe this one isn't Fates. And so yeah, I just always thought that was an interesting aspect. And then another Fire Emblem note, since Fire Emblem is so huge now, I feel like we have this 3DS era, despite its missteps, to thank in a lot of ways for our current resurgence of strategy games. That because Awakening did so well and just put Fire Emblem, made it a top tier Nintendo franchise, now we see more and more developers, even just Square Enix, going back to and putting out tactics games, and seeing.
You think we don't get Tactics Ogre Rebirth or Octopath? I'm sorry, or Triangle Strategy without Fire Emblem Awakening?
I think so. Yes.
Huh.
I think that even beyond that, even things like I think Disgaea 6 is generally not everyone's favorite in the series, but even just developers experimenting with strategy games again, pushing the limits on it, like the Diofield Chronicles coming out soon. I think all of that genre being as big as it is developers saying, look, a strategy game actually can be a big deal.
I definitely agree. I mean, I think it's quite impressive when, like Ubisoft, who are not exactly known for experimenting, will even go and make their own tactics game. I don't think we'd have got Mario and Rabbids without the success of Fire Emblem on the 3DS.
That's right. That is a strategy RPG, isn't it?
Yeah, I actually I don't like Rabbids, so that's not the first example that comes to mind. But yes, it's actually a really good example. That there's all of this strategy game. There's just a big resurgence of it, where for a long time it was. I hate to say it was a dead genre, but it was definitely not a priority.
It was not a mainstream genre for
Right.
sure.
So you're telling me the battle system of South Park: The Fractured Butthole would have been different if not for Fire Emblem Awakening. All right,
We're gonna go
uh,
with that.
excellent. Okay, so I think that's it.
Speaking of things that are terrible.
All right, that game's not bad. I mean, Morgan Freeman sells you magic burritos, and I
I know,
appreciate
I
it.
know, I know. I don't like South Park.
That
It's
game
fine.
is fine.
Yeah, it's a fine game.
Okay, but it is not a 3DS game, so we should try and stay on task a little bit. Tom, what's another game from the list or series from the list you'd like to discuss?
So I'll go with a series that I think is maybe a little bit underrated, and it's also maybe a bit almost sad to look back at, but is the Mario and Luigi series. We got 4 entries on the 3DS with Dream Team, Paper Jam, Superstar Saga, and Bowser's Inside Story. The later 2 being remakes, but I only admittedly played the remakes, but I think they're really, really charming games, and the writing is just fantastic. Like, it's so funny, and I mean, I think it's a bit sad that, especially with Bowser's Inside Story coming out so late, sort of led to I guess you could say, the death of Alpha Dream. But they're 2 games that I really spent a lot of time with on the 3DS, and I think they're quite like their battle system stuff like that. They're quite unique titles as well.
Peter, you and I have talked about these games a little bit. We did 2 episodes on Superstar Saga a year ago or so.
We did, yeah. I'm very
and
fond of these games.
yeah, and you and I have collectively mourned the death of Alpha Dream a little bit. I mean, obviously, what they need to do is do a remake of Tomato Adventure in the Salad Kingdom. Or no, I'm sorry, no, it's just Tomato Adventure, which is different from Princess Tomato in the Salad Kingdom. My bad.
I would absolutely play a remake of Tomato Adventure is the
Yeah.
problem, but
mixing up my tomato games. But Mario and Luigi Dream Team, which was the first one strictly for the 3DS, gives you situations where you can like make like thousands of clones of Dream Luigi and kick them like a soccer ball, or throw them like a giant chain whip. The absurdity of the brothers' attacks in these games really never get old, and makes the basics of combat in those games and the basics of platforming really unique and charming. There aren't really other games like it.
yeah, no, they're definitely very unique. They kind of, but Mario and Luigi has always sort of taken the formula that was popularized by Super Mario RPG and Paper Mario, and sort of played around with it to accommodate Luigi and the unique team up attacks, and also just this blistering sense of humor that it gives the Mario universe such personality. Um,
Says the
generally,
guy with a Fawful avatar in many places on the internet.
I have had a Fawful avatar for many years. Yes. Um, Generally speaking, I feel like for fans of Mario and Luigi, the consensus is that the series sort of peaked at Bowser's Inside Story on the DS, and people are a little less fond of the 3DS era for these games. However, I really love the art style of these games on the 3DS. I adore um, the super detailed sprites and really lush environments, and it's got such a calming, wonderful looking aesthetic. And Paper Jam, the second one that they came out with, that one was the Paper Mario crossover game that plays a lot with like little paper craft things.
That's the one I haven't played, but it's the look of it is extremely charming. I got to admit.
And then the Superstar Saga remake, putting aside like whether or not, people questioning whether or not it's necessary to remake these games in the first place, the Superstar Saga remake is excellent. I think that is a wonderful way to play that game. It's beautiful looking. It runs really well, and it's more accessible than ever before. Unfortunately, the series does go out on a bit of a low note, because while Bowser's Inside Story is still a great game, Bowser's Inside Story DX was kind of a step down from Superstar Saga remake. In a way, it doesn't run as well, and in general, was not very well received, which, as we pointed out, unfortunately led to the shuttering of the developer Alpha Dream. Which is a damn shame, because I would have really liked to see that developer branch out and experiment a little bit more.
It's also a shame that it sort of came out so late. Like, I mean, like 2019, by then, like, the Switch had been out for 2 years. I don't know
Uh-huh.
many people looking for titles on the 3DS, you know? I think that
Yeah,
Yeah.
ultimately.
if they'd put it on Switch, I feel like people would have bought it. Like,
Oh, yeah.
It
If they
was,
bought a new one out on Switch, that'd be really cool.
yeah, that
yeah,
was still that time where Nintendo insisted that they were going to keep two pieces of hardware, and that it's like they weren't all in on the Switch yet. They wanted to keep the 3DS alive just in case the Switch actually failed. And so they kept putting out things like the Luigi's Mansion remake and Bowser's Inside Story and Kirby's Epic Yarn. All these things that, like, I would have bought like all of those for the Switch, but I wasn't going to buy any of them for the
Uh,
3DS.
I don't know if we'll ever get to this, but the last 3DS game I bought new was in 2019. I think the only 3DS game I think is older on this list that's older than Bowser's Inside Story remake is the second Persona Q game, New Cinema
Mhm.
Labyrinth.
oh
That
yeah.
that one was extremely late, but it also really reused the entire engine and art style from the first one, which is why and used both screens a lot, which I think is why it was on 3DS and not Switch. But you're definitely right. I mean, 2019 is so late. The Switch was already out for over 2 years. Releasing a 3DS game at that time was really, I don't know, like looking at cross gen gameplay and reaching a little bit too far, probably. I mean, the New Cinema Labyrinth localization didn't have English dialogue, English voice dialogue. It was only in Japanese with English text, which is not the case for the previous Shadow of the Labyrinth, and I think probably because it just had a lesser budget, being a 3DS game released in 2019. All right, Anthony, go ahead and hit us with your next suggestion.
Um, I know I don't think Final Fantasy was mentioned too much, and I don't know. I'm sure everybody pronounces this a different way, but I always said Theater Rhythm Final Fantasy. I used to play the original one a lot when that came out. My original 3DS has many scratch marks from my stylus rapidly going back and forth trying to hit those notes.
Somewhere Stephen Myrink, friend of the site, just sat up bolt upright at the mention of Theater Rhythm.
So I was more of always a Dragon Quest person. So like Final Fantasy games, like I used to play them on like my Android devices when they came out on the App Store. But I never really got into them too much. But back this was back when Nintendo Power was still a thing, and I was reading through the magazine and I saw they had the article for the game, and just looking at the screenshots and reading it, I was like, it was unique. It was a battle rhythm game, and back then I wasn't really big into the internet and PCs and stuff like that, so I don't even know Osu or stuff like that, those existed. I have no idea, but that was my first introduction to rhythm games for me. I don't know, I just like the idea of the battle system, and even the music's catchy. Not even I have no experience of most of those games, and the characters just that's the customization is the characters you can choose from, and they had a DLC where you can you could, by the time you max out all these characters, you'd be playing the songs a million times. Not that you probably ever would, but it's definitely tailored. That game is tailored to people who know the series really well. But for me, as somebody who didn't, the gameplay itself and even just the music, it's very enjoyable and catchy. And I know there was multiplayer in the games. Never really played them too much. I know people had a lot of maxed out characters when they did play it, and I don't really remember much about it other than that.
Right. Well, I'll clarify some things, I guess. Theater Rhythm Final Fantasy is a 3DS rhythm game that has music from all over the Final Fantasy series and characters and situations from the Final Fantasy series, where you play different songs by dragging and tapping your stylus along to follow a sort of a scrolling musical bar on the bottom screen. Some of them are staged as battles, some of them are staged as walking through a world map, but it's basically just very specific tapping and dragging in time with the music. And it had an expanded version called Curtain Call that came out a year or two later that just added a bunch of more songs and characters and scenarios, and then had more DLC on top of that from music from all over Square Enix, including some songs from Chrono Trigger and I think the Mana series and probably others that I'm forgetting. And it's a shame that you're a Dragon Quest fan, Anthony. I'm not saying you should be ashamed of being a Dragon Quest fan, but there is a Theater Rhythm Dragon Quest that they released in Japan
Yes,
only,
yes,
which
but
is
alas, most Dragon Quest games are locked to Japan only. So
yeah. The third Rocket Slime game again
good series.
was
Yes.
it's a trilogy of games, one on the GBA, one on the DS, one on the 3DS, but we only got the DS one worldwide, localized as Dragon Quest Rocket Slime, but which is too bad we never got that one. But the one thing I was always the most puzzled by on Theater Rhythm, and I've talked about this in other podcasts, mostly years ago when these games were new. And Peter, you probably heard me tell you this before. I am baffled that there's no Kingdom Hearts music in Theater Rhythm. I was sure that they were secretly developing Theater Rhythm Kingdom Hearts, and they were just going to give us a new game full of Kingdom Hearts' beautiful music.
Which we eventually did get. We got Melody of
I was
Memory.
gonna say, didn't we just get that?
Yeah, except I mean, Theater Rhythm is way better than Melody of Memory. The problem with that, because Melody of Memory did not have nearly as much content or music as Theater Rhythm Final Fantasy, but it was also I think more expensive. It was like a full 60 bones instead of 40.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Melody and Memory is definitely a different beast. Although it's a very similar concept where you're guiding a party of characters through the songs in a way that's sort of meant to simulate the gameplay of the series it's based on. But it definitely has a smaller library of music. Um, and yeah, it would have been interesting to see them do that as part of Theater Rhythm's DLC.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe we're complaining about what Theater Rhythm isn't a little bit too much because
I would love it if they really made a new one. Oh
yeah, I mean, especially Curtain Call, which is just more Theater Rhythm content. They're excellent. They are just pure celebrations of Final Fantasy and Square Enix music. And if that sounds remotely good to you, then you would probably love this thing. I did not destroy my 3DS touchscreen by playing too much Curtain Call, but it's this is a good rhythm game, and scratched exactly the same itch as my college years of playing way too much Guitar Hero and Rock Band did, and me importing the other Owendon games in addition to Elite Beat Agents on the regular DS did. But yeah, if you are in the center of that Venn diagram of rhythm game fans and Final Fantasy music fans, then one of the Theater Rhythm games is a must purchase at least.
Absolutely.
All right, so that was Theater Rhythm Final Fantasy. I think that Stephen Meyerink and Derek Kingsbergen and Greg Delmage just sat bolt upright and aren't sure why they did so. But it's your turn, Josh. What's a game from our list that you'd like to discuss?
Xenoblade Chronicles 3D
Interesting.
is the worst way to play Xenoblade, especially now that the whole trilogy is on the Switch. But it's a technological marvel of sorts. It only runs on the new 3DS. It might be the only game that only runs on the new 3DS. It's one of very few. But it's the full Xenoblade experience, with all of the open world and just the whole thing, right? And uses the touchscreen for all of the menus, so you get a clean view on the top screen of the world that everybody loved from the Wii version anyway. Um, and so it's just, I thought it was just worth noting that like the 3DS was really capable of a lot when you pushed its limits, uh, to put a game the size of Xenoblade on it. I don't think there's anything even remotely similar in the library.
Right. Well, I don't own a new 3DS, but so I didn't play that version of Xenoblade Chronicles, but I did play the original Xenoblade on the Wii. It's maybe my favorite Wii game. It's one of I think the definitive RPGs of the PS Wii 60 era. And the definitive edition on Switch that came out last year was very well received. So if you want to play that thing on something more modern than the Wii or 3DS, I would recommend that because I've only heard complaints about the 3DS version. Caitlin Argyros, who is the number one Xenoblade fan that I know, with apologies to Zach Wilkerson and Alana Higgs and many others. Especially Tyler. Oh my God, I'm rudest to Tyler most of all. Sorry, Tyler.
We love you, Tyler.
The only thing that we're rooted to right now is Xenoblade Chronicles Cross because you referred to it as a Xenoblade trilogy. How dare you, Josh? How dare you?
Oh, I know. Yeah.
But But I remember people complaining about Xenoblade Chronicles 3D,
Rip.
but that's still one of the great RPGs of the last 15 years, the original version and its remakes. And the fact that that this game that like the Wii was chugging like a jet engine trying to run is able to run on the 3DS at all is remarkable. But that doesn't mean I want to play
No,
it.
I absolutely, like I said at the top, it's definitely the worst way to play it. Especially if you have access to Xenoblade Chronicles on anything else. Like Nintendo's released it on every piece of hardware since the Wii. Uh, but it just it is noteworthy. It almost just seems like they were flexing to say, look at what this
Mm-hmm.
little handheld can do.
Oh,
Um,
it definitely is them like showing off for sure. Um,
It's also maybe them trying to sort of, I guess, justify the new 3DS. There wasn't many titles that
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, for sure.
Maybe they're trying to move some new 3DS units by having this big game come out on it. That makes sense. I just hope it wasn't too expensive for them to move it over. But I mean, as much as I can't attest to the 3D version, Xenoblade Chronicles 1 is an all-time great. It really is.
For sure.
Yeah, it's definitely. I haven't played it, but it's definitely a game I'd like to. It seems like the 3DS version is not the way to go.
No, play the Switch version. Highly,
yeah,
highly
like honestly, at
recommended.
this point, the Switch version is the way to go.
Yeah. If you
But
have 100 hours to spare, definitely play that thing. But it is a long, meaty one. I have to say that at the top as well. But that's the only caveat emptor because it's like Xenoblade 1 is awesome. It's the only game with Xeno in the title that I liked enough to finish, which is really, I don't know if that's a bit too spicy a take for here, but I'm going to speak my truth.
I've only played 4 games with Xeno in the title. Look at me, getting rid of Xenoblade X.
I've tried to play 4 or 5, but the only one I finished was Xenoblade 1. But that game is outstanding.
I have finished Xenoblade 1 and Xenogears. I have attempted to finish Xenosaga Episode 1 and Xenoblade 2.
I have attempted all the ones that you said, but I didn't finish Xenogears because I hated the back end of the second disc so much I just stopped playing it.
See,
Is that the one that becomes a visual novel, isn't it?
It does. Yeah. Yes, they run out of it doesn't become a pure visual novel, but basically it becomes a lot of text dumps with tiny little dungeons and boss fights stitching them together.
Yes.
That being said, this is totally off topic. This will be quick. I'm the opposite of you in this regard, Sollosi, because I thought Disc 2 was an improvement.
I liked the awkward martial arts gameplay from the first disc and wanted more of it, but
I was so tired of Xenogears by the time I reached Disc 2 that I was like, oh, you're just going to give me the story and I can play less of this game? Great.
all right, well, regardless, this is not a Xenogears podcast. We did 2 Xenogears episodes in, I want to say 2016, it might have been 2017. So there's some Xenogears on Retro Encounter if you want that, but not now. There is no Xenogears port to the 3DS. Although I would have played that if they made one. Yeah, I'd have totally,
honestly.
I'd have totally played that. So it's my turn, and I think we'll make mine the last segment before we start housekeeping. Where should I go? Peter, do we want puzzles, monsters, or demons?
Oh man, you're making me choose because I'm gonna go with demons, but I don't want to take Monster Hunter away from you.
No, it's fine. We go. Let's go demons. There are a lot of Shin Megami Tensei games available on the 3DS. Both remakes and new ones, and other adaptations. Just scrolling down the list a little bit, we got Shin Megami Tensei 4, the proper 4th game in the series. Shin Megami Tensei 4 Apocalypse, which is a semi sequel to SMT4. The remake of Soul Hackers, which was Japan only, Saturn and PS1, and a remake of Strange Journey for the regular DS. Remakes of Devil Survivor Overclocked 1. I'm sorry, Devil Survivor 1 and 2. They're both called Overclocked, and which were originally DS. And what else is there? The Persona Q games that I mentioned. 2 Persona Q games, which are crossovers of the Etrian Odyssey series. So there's mapping and there's Persona characters and a Persona crossover story with a lot of dungeon map manipulation and sort of dungeon running, like party design gameplay. There are so many of them. I mean, I just hashed out 8, and a lot of them have follow ups on the Switch or other systems. But
Yeah, we just got Soul Hackers 2, or we will be getting it soon as of this recording.
Yeah, and that's a little bit of a complicated lineage because Soul Hackers was the second Devil Summoner game, and then they made two Devil Summoner 3 and 4 are the Raido Kuzunoho games, and I think but Soul Hackers drops the Devil Summoner thing, and I think that Atlas hopes or Sega Atlas hopes that Soul Hackers can be like a new proper series for them. Is my
Mm-hmm.
is my
I
theory.
will I will issue a small correction, Sollosi. You are correct. There are a lot of Shin Megami Tensei games on this list. Devil Survivor 2's 3DS version is called Record Keeper.
Right. Okay.
Uh,
Maybe unsurprisingly, I bought both of them as downloads when Sega Atlas had a giant sale. I think near the end of last year, and I'm like, well, I know that the 3DS library is going away, so I'm just going to download all the ones out on sale that I can. That's also why I own copies of Rhythm Thief and Monster Hunter 3, which is a game I would never thought I would play. But yeah, like all of these are at least at least will slake your thirst if you want to play some Shin Megami Tensei, because there's a lot of Shin Megami Tensei out there, and a lot of it is really really good. The one of the ones I've mentioned I've played the most are definitely the Persona Q games, and I think they're really good as long as you go in with the idea that this is not a pure Persona game. This is just Persona characters with target great value versions of their personalities stuck in the game, but really,
they're stuck in Etrian Odyssey.
yes, just stuck in an Etrian Odyssey game, but with really cool dungeon designs and cartography gameplay. But so if you're a Persona person that likes dungeon crawlers, then those games are both like better than they have any right to be. Uh, yeah, I've only played a little bit of Shin Megami Tensei 4, but it's really really good. Some people like it more than Nocturne or SMT5, but and on both of those games I've played to
Four
the
is
end and thought they were great.
excellent. Oh
Yeah.
my god.
Rob Steinman has tried to get me to play Shin Megami Tensei 4 more than any other game not named without souls in the title. Like I know that game has its fans for sure, and Apocalypse has the most terrifying final dungeon I've ever seen because I've only seen pictures of it.
Yep. Shin Megami Tensei 4 Apocalypse is the only game to stab me because I bought the edition that had those little pins included, and I stepped on one.
That game is so oppressive and violent that you literally injured it. It literally injured you.
That game actually made me bleed. So yeah, it's doing its job well, guys.
SMT is suffering, but like we said, Strange Journey is a semi first person dungeon crawler, like you're playing an old like Super Famicom SMT game or something. Soul Hackers is similar to well, I mean it's a remake of a PS1 Saturn game. You're a detective that uses a cell phone to summon demons or upgrade demons, and your girlfriend is possessed by a succubus at the very beginning of the game, and the demon girl Nemissa is very very popular. There's a lot of fan art of her floating around, and uh, excuse me, and so that's sort of a more traditional SMT game, but with noir detective flavor, with Nemissa as the femme fatale. But and the Devil Survivor games are basically strategy RPGs based on a grid where collecting and growing and strengthening demons and summoning with your cell phones is sort of part and parcel to that. I know the character designer for the Devil Survivor games went on to do some of the Digimon games that I know you're a fan of, Peter. Like,
Yeah,
is it?
yes.
Yeah, the same artist as Cyber Sleuth.
It's the same artist as Cyber Sleuth and also Durarara. Yeah, they have a very distinctive art style, and I adore it.
Yeah, so yeah, if you want some demon RPGs on the 3DS, there are a bunch of them. I don't know how expensive they are to find. Again, I have all of them digitally except for Soul Hackers and the Persona games. I think they're worth it, especially if you just want to bank them and for an RPG down the line, because that's how I treated all of them.
Also, Atlas have been putting on some pretty good sales in the lead up to the closure, so you
Oh
might be
yeah.
able to get them before it goes down.
Oh yeah, I got almost all of those games for less than $20 like this year. So like less than 20 bucks a piece, I should specify.
No, I think you're right. I think they were something like $9.99 each when I bought conservatively 4 or 5 of these plus others at a giant Sega Atlas sale at the end of 2021.
Unlike a lot of game companies, Atlas is pretty good about making sure you can play their older stuff. They've been good with re-releases. You can still buy boxed, sealed copies of some of their PS2 games online. for pretty cheap. The 3DS library of theirs is widely available, although some of the physical editions are a little hard to come by nowadays, but less so than other games. Um, the Atlas has a large and expansive library of games on the 3DS, and all of them are worth your time for sure. I will say this is a minor complaint, not even a complaint really, just a weird quirk. Atlas was obsessed with this trope in all of their re-releases where a mysterious girl with a secret shows up, and they do that same thing in all of the additional content for Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey, for Radiant Historia Perfect Chronology, for Persona 4 Golden.
So yeah, like there is that weird trend of Atlas remakes and sometimes just regular ass Atlas games having mysterious girls from the future and or a magical other dimension, like adding unnecessary storylines. But sometimes I like it, like in the first Persona Q game, and sometimes I ask why they did this, like in the Radiant Historia remake that we discussed earlier this episode. But we have spent almost 2 hours, or at least 90 minutes, talking about 10 different series, probably 30 games, and we did not get to about a full half of our list. Let's just talk about some more 3DS games, like giving them a 3-word review every time. Zero Escape, Virtue's Last Reward, and Zero Time Dilemma, one good, one less good. Bravely Default and Bravely Second, they're both great, but the second one's weird. Tales of the Abyss, that's one of the best PS2 RPGs, has a very good 3DS remake. 7 Etrian Odyssey games on this system, 4, 5, Untold 1, Untold 2, Nexus, and 2 Mystery Dungeon crossovers. Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance, which I'm heard is a video game. There are 6 there are 6 Monster Hunter games, 3 Ultimate, 4 for Ultimate Generations, Generations Ultimate, and Monster Hunter Stories, only 4 of which released worldwide. Rune Factory 4, which Marcos Gaspard loves, so it must be an excellent game. Starship Damray, not sure what that is. Crimson Shroud, we did an episode on that last year. It's a really unusual, or maybe it was 2 years ago, but it's a really unusual like tabletop game with figurines and dice rolls. It's pretty good. Yokai Watch, that's like that was an unusual series of ghost catching games made by Level 5 that was unpopular until its anime made it like the best-selling 3DS game for a while. Still don't understand what's going on with that. Story of Seasons, for the artist formerly known as Harvest Moon, has a couple of really good 3DS games. I think they're mostly messing around on the Switch now. And Josh, codename Steam, is that the game where like Abraham Lincoln is in a mecha?
I don't remember the mecha part, but yes, it's like got Abraham Lincoln and like the lion from the Wizard of Oz, and it's a weird historical strategy XCOM game.
And based on our theory from before, codename Steam would not exist without Fire Emblem Awakening.
Correct. Whether or not it should exist is another topic.
Every grid-based strategy game made after 2013 is just a sequel to Fire Emblem Awakening, which
that is true. Yes.
Yeah, it has.
It's all the alternate futures.
Got it. Oh, so we really are in a Kotaro Uchikoshi multiverse.
So what you're saying is that it's Fire Emblem Awakening's fault that Langrisser 3DS game came out? Got it.
Wow. Okay, so that's a game that was not on our list, and from your tone, Peter, I think there's a reason it's not on our list.
Yep, it is best forgotten about.
But you know, the 3DS has a bunch of other great games that aren't RPGs on it. Does anyone have a favorite non-RPG on the 3DS that they can give a 2-sentence spiel for?
I'll go. Mario 3D Land, completely underrated 3D Mario. I think it's definitely like one of the best utilizations of 3D on the system.
That final level in that game where you're like sailing down a gondola in 3D looks amazing when you do it. Though yeah. I can't have the 3D turned on all the time with that game because it does hurt my eyes a little. While we're talking about 3D Nintendo platformers, there are 2 really excellent Kirby games for 3DS, Triple Deluxe and Planet Robobot. They both come highly recommended, especially from a Kirby hater like me that thought there were no good Kirby games in between Superstar and Triple Deluxe.
Wow.
I mean,
I agree that those are like 2 major highlights. I wouldn't say there were no good ones in between them.
You know, that's true. There was a DS remake of Superstar. That game's great.
Oh my goodness.
This is Kirby's Air Ride Erasure.
Yeah. Kirby's Air Ride is awesome. But
I'm sure that's a video game that happened.
It is definitely a video game that happened.
But what are any other video games that happened on the 3DS before we start housekeeping?
Mario Kart 7. Yeah, Metroid.
Metroid Samus Returns. brought
That
back
was
the Metroid series.
brought back the Metroid series and led directly into us getting Metroid Dread. I remember when they announced that, Rob was freaking out. Mario Kart 7 is a very good Mario Kart game.
Right on. Yeah,
Hockey Card Jockey is a good one from, I think, who was it from? The Pokemon creators made that one?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was Game Freak. And Smash 3DS was a pretty good handheld Smash game that came out before the Wii U version and kind of gave everyone a preview of what to expect. It has some very unique features that they haven't done since.
Smash Run is so much fun. I wish that had been redone again.
another shockingly okay fighting game adaptation on the 3DS. Street Fighter 4 has a 3DS version that lets you play in a 3D like over the shoulder mode, and it's shockingly not bad. Like a Street Fighter with weird touch controls and 3D features kind of worked on the 3DS. And if that's not an endorsement for the 3DS being a great system, I don't know what is. But listeners, I hope you like the 3DS almost as much as the five of us do. Otherwise, this would have been a very tiresome listen. But all five of us love the 3DS. There are a ton of games to talk about that are excellent. We didn't get to nearly all of them, but I hope you enjoyed this 3DS appreciation station. But also thank the four of you, Anthony, Tom, Peter, and Josh, for joining me on this episode. It had been floating around as an idea for a while, and I'm a little sad that it took the closure of the 3DS store to get us to want to talk about it more.
Hey, as long as it got us to the table eventually. And yeah, it was thank you for having me. It was a fun trip down memory lane.
Even if that trip down memory lane includes that Langrisser remake that you love so much.
Oh
Fire
boy,
Emblem
do
Fates.
not get me started.
And Fire Emblem Fates. You know, I really could do an entire episode called Fire Emblem Hates. That's just me clowning on that game.
I do feel
Because-
bad that you didn't get to talk about Monster Hunter.
You know what? It's fine. I sort of skipped Monster Hunter on the 3DS. There's again 6 games on it, and I've only really played one of them at length. But Monster Hunter had an entire time in the middle of the 2010s on 3DS. But my Monster Hunter fandom is mostly the PSP, and then skip right ahead to the to the Switch and PS4. So I was too busy playing Fire Emblem Awakening and ensuring the future of strategy RPGs when the Monster Hunter 3DS games are coming out. But yeah, if we're talking about how Monster Hunter 4 relates to Fire Emblem Awakening, then it was definitely time to end the episode. We all thanked each other for showing up, but especially no disrespect, Peter, but especially thank you to Josh, Tom, and Anthony for making this your very first episode of Retro Encounter. Turns out that we have done hundreds and are going to be doing way more. So hopefully this is not the last time that we podcast together.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. I got a long way to go to beat that record Peter has.
So it's nice to not just edit them for once. So I appreciate
Oh,
it.
Peter doesn't have the record. I'm a little bit ahead of him, but
I was gonna say, but
I
no,
don't
you
think,
guys,
I don't
you
think
guys,
any of us can beat that record.
no.
you guys did great. It was great having y'all.
But listeners, I mentioned that there are hundreds of episodes of Retro Encounter. That is definitely true. We have done episodes on many of these games we've discussed, including Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, Xenoblade Chronicles, the Ace Attorney series. I'm looking through Radiant Historia. Majora's Mask has 2 episodes on Retro Encounter from many years ago. And we've done some generalized Pokemon episodes, again, from many, many years ago. But a lot of these are getting the old podcast planning gears turning. I'm just going to write down Dragon Quest VIII for earmark that for 2023. But enough of that. Let's talk about the more near future of Retro Encounter. We're doing one more episode on Final Fantasy 13. I know that you've maybe listened to two episodes of Final Fantasy 13 on Retro Encounter very recently, but we have a third one talking about the sequels of FF13. And Peter, you are on deck to record that one.
Yes, I am. We're going to be talking about the whole Fabula Nova Chrysalis thing and whether or not it panned out. So look forward to that.
I am indeed looking forward to that. But coming later this month, we're doing 2 episodes on Live Alive, a game I have been mispronouncing for at least 20 years, a 1994 Square RPG that was recently remade on the Switch. recently, I think just a month ago, or maybe 2 months ago by now. But that's a game that sort of passed me by a little bit when I was emulating everything under the sun in the early 2000s, but now this remake gives me a perfect chance to replay it. Tom, we talked a little bit before recording. You've already finished the Live Alive remake. What did you think of it?
Yeah, it's a really interesting game. I think it's pretty like, I guess you could say, meta. It's a bit like, you can definitely see the pulls that Undertale and games like that took from it. I think it's just great to see like Square bringing back all these old like games that we really never got.
Okay, penciling in Tom for 2 more episodes in September.
I'll see you guys
Perfect.
there.
And but after September, I think I announced on social media by now. October is month of adventure games for Retro Encounter. We are playing 4 adventure games from from 1990 to the present day. They're all going to be shorties, so I think I'm going to be on 3 or 4 of those episodes. I can't say what all of them are yet. Maybe you know by now, but 2 of them are definitely The Secret of Monkey Island and Broken Age, sort of the beginning and towards the end of Tim Schafer's career of writing adventure games. So please look forward to Live Alive, more Final Fantasy 13, and 4 different adventure games over the next 6-ish weeks, or no, let's say 8-ish weeks of Retro Encounter. But listeners, Retro Encounter is not the only fine podcast offered on RPGFan.com. There's also Random Encounter every 2 weeks about randomness, Rhythm Encounter every 2 weeks about RPG music. You can listen to those and rate or review both of those and Retro Encounter on your podcast platform of choice, which could be Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, or something else. But RPG Fan is more than just podcasts. We also have our message boards, our main website, rpgfan.com, a page on Facebook, a page on Twitter, a Discord server, a YouTube channel, an Instagram account. Yeah, that's the word for Instagram. Yeah, an Instagram account, and a Twitch channel with something streaming at least 5 days a week on Twitch. So please enjoy RPG Fan in however manner you choose. Oh, there's also merch to sell now. After many years of no merch at all, RPG Fan has an official online store hosted by tpublic.com, and you can search for RPG Fan on TeePublic or find the link from our other social media accounts to buy RPG Fan t-shirts or hoodies or coffee mugs or phone cases or a number of other things emblazoned with the RPG Fan Emerald Shield. Please support RPG Fan however you choose and are able to do so. But if you want to reach out to us as individuals and not as RPG Fan, let's tell them the best way to do that, which is my way of saying share your social media right now if you choose to. Starting with you, Peter.
As always, if you want to reach out to me, you can find me at I Have Fury on Twitter or email me, petert@rpgfan.com.
All right, thank you for demonstrating to the rest of the class how it's done, Peter. 100 plus episode veteran, Peter. Now it's your turn, Josh.
Yeah, the best way to find me is Twitter. I am at Watcher Joshua.
Now, Anthony.
So on the RPG page, on the About section, you can check out my Twitter handle, which is the same as Instagram, which is the lengthy @AntonioNionio_K, which is the same as the Instagram, which has my link to my professional portfolio and other resources.
That's right. Anthony, you're a professional photographer, correct? In IRL, as the kids say.
Yes, I work for the news out in Albany, New York. So fun times.
Right on. And Tom, your turn.
Yeah, if you want to find me, the best place to find me is Twitter. My handle is Voiceless Tom, which is slightly ironic considering you're hearing my voice right now, but there we are.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, Tom, you are literally only a voice. So that your Twitter handle is a little bit of a contradiction.
Oh, maybe I have to change it.
My Twitter is also a metaphor that might be a contradiction. I'd have to, double check a dictionary to see how right or wrong that is. Listeners, the easiest way to find me is Twitter. I am at The Real Monsoon most of the time, at Evoker for Dogs other times, and on RPG Fans Discord, I am Monsoon Mike. Let's see. I don't think my my eBay searches will be that destroyed following this episode, because my 3DS collection is pretty good, but oh boy, maybe I really do need to play a strategy RPG starring Abraham Lincoln. I don't know. Listeners, thank you. Good night, and good luck.